Hello and welcome to the Myschool channel. My name is Angela, and in this video we're going to be reviewing the JAMB past question for literature for the year 2010. Please don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Myschool channel. In this video, we're going to be reviewing questions 26 to 50. Let's begin with question 26. Black theatre is a drama concerned with A. Mourners dressed in black, B. The identity of Black Americans, C. Africans of West Indian origin, and D. Actors of Black origin. The answer to this question is B. The identity of Black Americans. Black theatre they usually present plays that are primarily concerned with presenting the identities of Black Americans. They talk about the racial discrimination they face, the social injustices, and their culture, the culture of the Black American people in the American society. Although the plays are casted by actors of Black origin, it is not concerned with their lives, it is concerned with the identity of the Black Americans in the American society. So our answer to this question is B. Question 27. A final stanza of a poem that is shorter than the preceding one is called A. Envoy, B. Antithesis, C. Epanalipsis, and D. Irony. The answer to this question is Envoy. Envoy is the concluding stanza that usually consists of 2 or 3 lines at the end of a poem. It helps to create a sense of finality for the poem, and it holds that central message that the poet is trying to pass across to the reader. Then we have antithesis, which is a figure of speech that presents 2 contrasting ideas and place them side by side in order to create a thought-provoking statement. An example is man opposes, God disposes. Epanalipsis is a figure of speech where a particular word is used both at the beginning and end of a statement. Then we have irony, which is a figure of speech that helps to show the contradiction between appearance and reality, between the literal meaning and the expected meaning that is in the mind of the readers. Our answer to this question is Envoy, because it is the final stanza of a poem that is usually shorter than the rest of them and that contains that concluding final message that the poet is trying to pass across to the reader. Question 28. Monometer is a line of verse consisting of a metrical foot, B. Single foot used in John Milton's sonnets, C. Line repeated in first syllable of a word, and D. Single meter of Coleridge's poem Christabel. The answer to this question is a line of verse consisting of a metrical foot. So a monometer is a line of poetry that consists of just 1 metrical foot, and a metrical foot consists of just an unstressed and a stressed syllable, just that syllable in that line of verse. An example of a monometer or 1 metrical foot is freedom. If you see freedom standing alone in a line of poetry, that is a monometer, because it consists of an unstressed and a stressed syllable. So our answer to this question is a line of verse consisting of a metrical foot. Question 29. A character that heavily relies on cultural types for his manner of speech, his personality, and other distinguishing characteristics is A. stock character, B. a rounded character, C. an antagonist, and D. a fiction character. The answer to this question is A. stock character. A stock character is a character that heavily relies on cultural types. They are usually very easily recognizable by the reader because they are people that they encounter on a daily basis when they go out into the streets. So an example of a stock character is Jennifer in Jennifer's Diary. She is the village girl that we're all familiar with. You can see that with the fact that she came from the village and then she had a dream to make it in the city. And with the use of a code mixing, a mixing of English language with Yoruba. So all of this represents cultural stereotypes because they are characters that we see on a daily basis and that we've typed as a particular type of person, the village girl. So our answer to this question is A. stock character. Question 30. A form of poetry that celebrates with nostalgia the ideal world of the countryside is referred to as A. pastoral, B. a ballad, C. an ode, and D. an elegy. The answer to this question is A pastoral. A pastoral poetry is a poem that talks about the beauty of the countryside or rural life. It talks about the simplicity of this life and the longing for the ideal world of the countryside. It usually consists of characters such as gypsies, nymphs, and shepherds. And these characters help to portray how beautiful and simple rural life is. So our answer to this question is A pastoral. Question 31. To see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. So this excerpt is from William Blake's To See a World in a Grain of Sand. The predominant figure of speech used in the lines above is A, metaphor, B, paradox, C, hyperbole, and D, simile. So the answer to this question is B, paradox. Paradox is a figure of speech that expresses a statement which at first may seem confusing to the readers, but upon closer examination begins to make sense. So you can see the use of paradox in this excerpt, because when you look at the line, to see the world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower and the rest of the lines, you will see that at first, when you look at it, it doesn't make sense. It may be confusing at first. But when you look deeply into it and try to reflect on what the poet is trying to express to you, you begin to see meaning in these lines. So to see the world in a grain of sand means to see something very, very significant in something that is ordinary and usually insignificant. Normally we'll see a grain of sand, a wildflower, or even the palm of your hand. You see that every day, you come across it every day. But we don't really take time to reflect on these things and to see the meanings that can be derived from these things. So the poet is trying to show that you can get meaning, you can get insight from even the very little things that will come across on a daily basis. So answer to this question is B, paradox. Question 32. I am informed the day recycles itself today. When I slept in the Lord in February, I blame no one for an untimely death. I bless God for a noble departure. His words, the Lord taketh the righteous away before evil days. The persona in the poem appear happy to have died A, a noble death, B, at an old age, C, an untimely death, and D, during the day. So the answer to this question is A, noble death. And we can see that in the fourth line, I bless God for a noble departure. So he's trying to express that although he died untimely, he had an untimely death, he blames no one for it. So that shows that C can't be the answer to the question because it does not appear to have died an untimely death. Then he said, I bless God for a noble departure. So he quotes a word from the scriptures. The Lord taketh the righteous away before evil days. All of this shows that he died a noble death. He did not die at a point where there were lots of evils or war happening in the land. So the answer to this question is A, noble death. Question 33. The tragic character is the person whose experiences arouse pity and A, frustration, B, terror, C, horror, and D, sympathy. The answer to this question is B, terror. The tragic character is that character in a tragic work that possesses so many virtuous qualities. He's usually better than the ordinary man, but he has one single flaw that eventually leads to his downfall. So according to Aristotle in his book Poetic, the tragic character is the person that arouses the feeling of pity and terror in the minds of the reader. He arouses pity in the minds of the reader in the sense that this tragic character, though he has so many virtuous qualities, he is eventually led to his downfall just because of one single flaw. So the readers feel sorry for him because the bad things that happen to him is usually undeserved. The reader also feels terror in the sense that if they continue to possess the qualities that led to this tragic character's downfall, they may fall into the same path. So the answer to this question is B, terror. Question 34. A panegyric poem is composed to A, praise, B, abuse, C, condemn, and D, elaborate. The answer to this question is A, praise. A panegyric poem is a poem that is designed to praise an individual or a thing for the good works that they have done or that particular thing has done. So an example of a panegyric poem is an eulogy that is usually said at a funeral to praise someone who just died for the good deeds he has done while he was still alive. So our answer to this question is A, praise. Question 35. A trilogy is the A, set of 3 one-act drama written by related authors, B, sequence of 3 plays written by the same author, C, series of related stories divided into 3 equal parts, D, collection of 3 poems of equal length. So a trilogy is a series of connected works of literature written by the same author. They usually talk about connected themes and connected events. So we're going to look for the option that best describes what a trilogy is. The first one, a set of 3 one-act drama written by related authors, is not correct because it is usually written by the same author. Then option B, sequence of 3 plays written by the same author. This can be the answer because it's a sequence of 3 plays, 3 different works of literature written by the same author with connected themes. Then option C, series of related stories divided into 3 equal parts. This does not show that they are individual works written by the same author, right? They are just a series of related stories divided into equal parts. Then we have option D, a collection of 3 poems of equal length. Again, it doesn't talk about the fact that it is written by the same author, and they're talking about collection of 3 poems. We don't know if it's related or connected to each other. So the best answer to this question is B, a sequence of 3 plays written by the same author. Question 36. The term given to a type of incident or device which recurs frequently in literature is A, ritual, B, concept, C, myth, and D, motif. So the answer to this question is D, motif. Motif is a type of incident, a theme, a symbol, or an idea that occurs frequently throughout a literary work. So an example of a motif is the theme of blindness and invisibility that can be found in Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. You can see that they talk about how the white members of the society are blind to the racial discrimination that the black people face, and how the black people are invisible to the white people because they can't see them for who they are. They only see them through the lens of their racial stereotype, the racial stereotype that they assign to the black people. So this is a very common motif that can be found in Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man, and you can see that in every chapter of the work. They talk about that in every chapter of the work. So every single thing that happens to the narrator talks about this theme of blindness and invisibility. So this is why it's a common motif in the work, and this is also why motif is the answer to this question. Question 37. The term for the moral flaw or weakness that leads to the downfall of a major character in a drama is A, denouement, B, hamartia, C, chaos, and D, reversal. The answer to this question is B, hamartia. According to Aristotle, again in his book Poetics, he uses the concept hamartia to talk about the moral flaw that the tragic character or the tragic hero possesses that leads to his eventual downfall, despite the many virtuous qualities that he has. An example of hamartia can be found in Olarotimi's The Gods Are Not to Blame, when Odewale, the tragic character in that piece of work, tried to defy fate that has been predestined to him by the gods. So that's an example of hamartia. Our answer to this question is B. Do you know you can take practice questions with our simulated JAMB CBT past questions? All you need to do is to click on the link in the description below. This takes you to the Myschool website. There you can download the Myschool mobile app for your Android devices and the Myschool software for your laptops and computers. Please go ahead and start practicing. Now on to question 38. The narrator in a prose work, who is also a character, is A, the omniscient narrator, B, participatory narrator, C, objective narrator, and D, subjective narrator. So the answer to this question is B, participatory narrator. The participatory narrator is also known as the first-person narrator. He is a character in the story, and just like other characters, sometimes he may not be aware of the things that are going on around him, but he is the one telling the story, and the story is being told from his perspective and not the perspective of other people. The omniscient narrator is the third-person narrator, who is not a character in the literary work, but you can see through the thoughts and intentions of each of the characters in the story. The subjective narrator is another name for the omniscient narrator. The objective narrator cannot see into the thoughts and intentions of each of the characters. He can only narrate what he observes. He narrates from the perspective of someone who's just observing everything that is going on around him. He's also a third-person narrator in the sense that he is not a character in the story. So our answer to this question is participatory narrator, because it is the narrator who is a character in the story. Answer to this question is B. I believe you're enjoying this content. If yes, please do not forget to hit the like button, click on the subscribe button, and lastly, tap on the notification bell to get informed as soon as we release the next videos. Question 39. Africa, my Africa of proud warriors in ancestral savannas, I have never known you, but your blood flows in my veins, your beautiful black blood that irrigates the field. So this excerpt is from David Diop's Africa. In the lines above, Diop uses A, onomatopoeia, B, metaphor, C, personification, and D, simile. The answer to this question is C, personification. Personification is a figure of speech that ascribes human qualities to inanimate objects, in this case, Africa. Africa is an inanimate object, but the poet's persona is referring to her as though she is a human being, right? He talks to her like someone who is actually present and who understands what he's saying. Said, Africa of proud warriors in ancestral savannas, I have never known you, but your blood flows through my veins, your beautiful black blood. So all of this suggests that he's talking to a human being, although Africa is not a human being. He's talking to her like she's a human being. So our answer to this question is C, personification. Question 40. The figure of speech in which a character makes a statement that has or would have deep and serious implication in the play is A, dramatic irony, B, aside, C, textual contrast, and D, euphemism. So the answer to this question is D, euphemism. Euphemism is a figure of speech that helps to soften the blow or impact of a particular statement that would have otherwise had a deep or serious impact on the listener. So it is the best answer to this question because, first of all, it's a figure of speech, unlike dramatic irony and aside, which are dramatic techniques that help to improve the dramatic effects of the play. It is also, it can also be a statement that a character makes that has or would have deep and serious implication for the play, but is said in a way that helps to soften the blow or impact of that statement. So it cannot be textual contrast because, you know, textual contrast is the placement of two opposing ideas together in a piece of writing, and it has nothing to do with a play. So the best answer to this question is D, euphemism. Question 41. In Kunene's A Heritage of Liberation, the poet's persona requests that the weapon of warfare be handed to their A, relations, B, grandchildren, C, families, and D, friends. The answer to this question is B, grandchildren. Kunene's A Heritage of Liberation is a poem that talks about the fighting spirit or the spirit of resistance of the African people and how this spirit of resistance should be transferred on to future generations so that they can continue to use that to fight for their freedom. So in the poem, it asks that this weapon of warfare, which are symbols for that spirit of resistance, be passed on to the grandchildren so that they can continue in the struggle for independence. So our answer to this question is B, grandchildren. Question 42. The predominant device in Laonko's End of War is A, antithesis, B, oxymoron, C, paradox, and D, onomatopoeia. The answer to this question is C, paradox. Paradox is a figure of speech in which statements that are made sound confusing at first to the readers, but upon closer examination, it begins to make sense. So Okimba Laonko's End of War is a poem that discusses how several military leaders transition into civilian rule, and though they have taken positions as military leader during the civilian era, they fill the parliament and take leadership position and continue the regime of terror, struggles, and every other thing that contributes to the stress that the Nigerian people face. So the poem is filled with a lot of paradoxes. One of such paradox is the war only ends when another war begins. It's trying to show how, though the military regime has ended with all of its stress, and the only reason it ended is because another regime of terror is about to begin. That's the regime of civilian rule, where the old leaders are recycled into new positions and they continue to terrorize the Nigerian people. So this is one example of the many paradoxes that are used in this particular poem. Our answer to this question is C, paradox. Question 43. The theme of the poem Give Me the Minstrel Seat centers on A, fortune, B, marriage, C, companionship, and D, divorce. The answer to this question is C, companionship. The poem Give Me the Minstrel Seat is talking about how human beings cannot exist alone in isolation, that companionship is a very important aspect of being a human being. It talks about companionship in various aspects of life, such as marriage and friendship. It talked about how a woman isn't complete without a man, a partner. And then he also talked about how people who have no friends usually have no good fortune. So the theme that is predominantly expressed in this poem is the theme of companionship. Our answer to this question is C. Question 44. The poet's persona in marvels to his coy mistress is willing to praise the lady's eyes for A, 6 decades, B, 2 centuries, C, a century, and D, 30,000 years. The answer to this question is C, a century. In Andrew Marvell's To His Coy Mistress, the poet's persona is attempting to praise the beauty of a woman's physical features. So it makes use of hyperbole to describe or to over-exaggerate her beauty. It says it's going to spend 100 years praising her eyes. So this is why the answer to this question is C, a century. Question 45. In Lawrence's Bat, the poet's persona mistakes the bats for A, swallows, B, pipistrello, C, sparrows, and D, owls. The answer to this question is A, swallows. At the beginning of the poem, the poet's persona was standing in front of his house and admiring the natural environment. Then suddenly, some creatures came in from the wild. And then as it was coming in, he assumed they were swallows because of the way they were moving around in the air and taking a dip into the water. Eventually, he discovered that these creatures were actually bats, and then he was immediately filled with a feeling of disgust because of the creatures. The answer to this question is A, swallows, because it is what the poet's persona mistakes the bat for at first. So the answer to this question is A. Question 46. In Eliot's Journey of the Magi are aided on their journey by A, horses, B, camels, C, chariots, and D, donkeys. The answer to this question is B, camels, and we can see that in the first stanza of the poem. So in the first stanza, they talked about how the Magi rode on camels, and as they journeyed through the wintry atmosphere, they became fatigued. They described them as galled, sore-footed, and refractory. So all of this suggests that the answer to this question is B, camels. Do you have a question? Please feel free to ask your question by clicking the link in the description below. This takes you to the Myschool website. There you can ask your question and a solution will be provided to you within a short period of time. Now on to question 47. According to Cope's Sonnet 8, poetry is basically A, therapeutic, B, philosophical, C, inspiring, and D, boring. So the answer to this question is A, therapeutic. In the poem, the poet's persona talks about how poetry can be a source of solace and comfort to the readers in times of trouble. It also talks about the restorative effect of poetry. So our answer to this question is A, therapeutic. Do you have a better explanation or solution to any of these questions? Please feel free to indicate by going down to the comment section below, indicating the question number and the solution you would like to share. Question 48. This question is based on JC, the Graft's Sons and Daughters. I simply don't understand what's the matter with everybody today. Everybody lets me down, and the speaker above is referring to A, Hannah and George, B, Aaron and Manan, C, Lawyer B and Mrs. B, and D, Fosoa and maid servants. The answer to this question is B, Aaron and Manan. So this statement was made by James, Aaron and Manan's father, after he felt disappointed or dejected by the fact that his children, Aaron and Manan, refused to follow his dictates that they should go to study engineering and law respectively in a university in London. While Aaron wanted to be a painter, Manan wanted to be a dancer. And so they refused to follow the dictates of their father. This led him to be sad and disappointed as children. So the answer to this question is B, Aaron and Manan. Question 49. This question is based on Ferdinand Uyonno's The Old Man and the Medal. The disagreement between Mvondo and Nti centers on the latter's claim to have A, assisted Mecca in getting the medal, B, being in a white man's office, C, eating more than a share of the food, and D, eating the entire entrails of the sheep. The answer to this question is B, being in a white man's office, So the quarrel between Mbondo and Nti was because Nti made a statement that she has been in a white man's office, but Mbondo refused to believe this. This is because the story is set in the colonial era in Cameroon, when the people in Cameroon still believed in the racial superiority of the white man. So there was little to no interaction between the whites and the blacks during that era. And the idea that Nti had been to a white man's office sounds absurd because there's still some hostility between the white and the black. The white feels that they were superior to the black race, and the black people were really afraid to have any relationship with the white people in the society. So the answer to this question is B, being in a white man's office. Question 50. This question is based on Ferdinand Oyono's The Old Man and the Medal. Mecca can best be described as A, an impulsive old man, B, an old religious bigot, C, an egocentric old man, and D, a simple-hearted old man. The answer to this question is C, an egocentric old man. Someone who is egocentric is someone who is concerned only about what he desires and what he wants out of other people. The person usually thinks the world revolves around him. So in this case, Mecca can be described as an egocentric old man because all of his desire was focused on getting the medal and recognition from the French government, and his interaction with every other person, including his friends and families, was focused on this desire, the desire to get this medal from the French government. So the answer to this question is C, an egocentric old man. I believe you have enjoyed this content. If yes, please do not forget to hit the like button, click on the subscribe button, and lastly tap on the notification bell to get informed as soon as we release the next videos.